Upgrade isn't a big film. There is no huge budget or any major stars in it. No real marketing push for it either, and yet it stuck anyway. Because something interesting happened. People keep recommending it. Again and again and again. Let's take a look and see what makes Upgrade cult, actually. Upgrade follows a chap known as Grey Trace, and we find ourselves in a future that's just close enough to be uncomfortable as his story unfolds. It was written and directed by Leigh Whannell, and if you're a fan of modern horror, you've probably come across that name before in some way, especially if you've seen Saw or Insidious. And you'll know what it's capable of. That man knows how to make a solid film on a shoestring budget. Grey Trace is a man who doesn't trust technology, but he lives in a world that's been built around it. Self-driving cars, smart homes and automation everywhere. He avoids it the best he can, spending his time fixing old-timey mechanical cars. Anything that leans heavily into working with his hands, really. All he wants is to be left alone, and I can relate. But sure enough, the world can't just leave the man in peace, and soon enough, he's dragged into the technological world, kicking and screaming. We meet Grey as he's finishing off working on a car for a client. He needs to drive it back to its owner, Eron, a big name in the world of technology. To get home, he has to beg a lift from his wife, Asha. He convinces her by using the idea that Eron lives in a nice house and she'd love to see it. True enough, she's excited when she gets there. Asha realises she knows Eron from his work. She's in a similar field and knows of his company. They get chatting and Eron ends up inviting them to see some new tech he's been working on privately. He introduces her to a new chip he's been developing, which he calls STEM. With it not being really Grey's thing, he soon gets bored and he's heard enough. They make their excuses and then they leave. On the drive home, something goes wrong with Ash's automatic car. It takes them into a rough part of town and somehow manages to crash. As the pair lie in their wreckage afterwards, the car pulls up. At first it looks like they try to help, but one thing leads to another. Asha is shot and Grey ends up lying on the floor paralysed as he watches her die, which, overall, is pretty rubbish. For a while after that, things are looking bleak for our Grey for a while. But then, hope arrives in the form of Eron. He offers to implant Grey with his STEM chip, which will give him full control of his body again. Grey reluctantly agrees to the procedure, and it works. As promised, he gets control back. And, like any other good movie husband who'd been left powerless against an attack on his wife, he sets about seeking revenge. He gets hold of some video footage of the night his world changed. He's reliving the nightmare in video format. A thought comes to him, or a voice in his head, more accurately.
May I point something out?
Turns out, STEM has a voice. He helps Grey notice a few things in the footage he hadn't seen. STEM then offers up the idea he can take control of Grey, like a puppeteer, which gives Grey unnatural abilities. They're sharing the body. But it's actually something much more interesting than it first appears to be. As we see STEM take over Grey more and more, we can see little cracks.
Now, while you have the advantage.
At first it feels like a partnership, but slowly that balance shifts. Suggestions turn into instructions. Instructions turn into decisions. And eventually, Grey isn't really making choices anymore. The film doesn't really stop to explain this, it just lets it happen, quietly. And that's what makes it land. It becomes less and less obvious who is actually in control here. Grey didn't trust technology, and the film doesn't exactly argue with him. Grey can't see it because he's getting exactly what he wants. He doesn't question it, he's just along for the ride, literally.
STEM, you can take over.
Hi! Actually, one of the reasons Upgrade has gained such a strong cult reputation is the way it handles action. Instead of traditional choreography, the film uses a strange visual trick. While STEM is in control of Grey's body, the camera locks onto him. Literally, they had a special setup to follow and track him, just for the fight scenes. It helps give a certain uncanny valley effect. Grey's body loops and moves more like a machine than man. It's mechanical, almost robotic, and it makes the violence feel wrong, but in a good and thoroughly satisfying way. And that violence itself is another reason the film sticks in people's memory, for being honest. Upgrade doesn't hold back here in any way. It's brutal, not in the sense of constant gore, but in the way the fights play out, because the film understands exactly how far to push it. Upgrade's secret is the idea that resides in its core, the technology. STEM is capable of improving Grey. It makes him stronger, faster and smarter. It helps him make the assumption we all do, that we're the ones in charge. But what happens if we're wrong? What happens if that thing that improves you doesn't need you anymore? I'll dance around spoiling the film, but I will say that Upgrade commits to answering the question a lot of Hollywood films simply wouldn't. No punches are pulled in this fight. STEM remains as effective a machine as ever, right till the end. And it's that ending that keeps people recommending this one, to this very day. It didn't storm the box office despite good reviews. Anyone who watches it tends to like it, and it's just the right amount of uncomfortable for it to linger. It was the marketing that let this one down. It never got the push it needed to take it mainstream. I don't know why. So instead, Upgrade found itself on the slow path. Streaming services, late night TV, and the old classic path to cult town, word of mouth. And that's where it finds itself today. It's not forgotten, its fans don't let that happen, but it's never been called a blockbuster. One thing I am sure of though, as long as people keep recommending it, it'll keep going. Which, I guess, is how many cult films survive. And it really is one of those films you find yourself telling people about because you feel like you discovered a secret. You see it on a streaming menu at 1am, give it a go, and then spend the next week telling your mates they're idiots for missing it. Anyways, I've been Paul, and Upgrade is cult, actually. If you've liked this video, then do me a favour and drop me a like to let me know. Subscribe as well if you want while you're there. Or don't, I'll be here anyway when you get back. But hopefully, I shall see you on the next rewind, all the same. Thanks for watching.